Let's get to WrestleMania 10. I'm sure we're going to talk about this long form sometime, probably next year. But we'll touch on, while we're here, Shawn Michaels in 94 cannot be discussed without talking about March 20th, 1994 at Madison Square Garden. Dave Meltzer was raving about this match. We're going to read you part of what he says here. Shawn Michaels put on one of the greatest individual performances in the history of the business at WrestleMania 10 on March 20th in New York's Madison Square Garden to highlight what the consensus is the best pay-per-view show in WWF history. Michaels, in one of his last shows with the company before going on what is a planned to be several month long sabbatical, put on a performance that left just about everyone in wrestling in awe in his ladder match loss to Razor Ramon. The match, probably the best match ever on a WWF pay-per-view, somehow overshadowed one of the greatest matches in WWF history between Bret and Owen Hart that opened the show, and a WWF title change with Bret's later regaining of the WWF title from Yokozuna in an average match on the evening's finale. The Hart match with Owen scoring the surprise clean win to elevate him into the upper echelon appeared when it was over to be a strong match of the year candidate. And it was a tad better than the legendary Steamboat Savage WrestleMania 3 match, which has largely been considered the greatest match in WWF history because of the stronger finish and every bit as good work overall. Of course, Razor gets the win here. 18 minutes, 47 seconds, pretty incredible match. Words can't really describe exactly how awesome this is. Meltzer would write, if you haven't seen this match, make sure you do it, as it will be remembered for many years. Watch how ladder matches now become the hottest gimmick on the indie scene. 5 stars. We've sort of made fun of the star rating, or you have, here on the show for a long time. But let's just pretend for a minute that star ratings were legitimate and something that you could co-sign. This has to be 5 stars, does it not?
No, I'd give it 10. Well, it was that good. There was nothing else to compare it to. And oh my God, go ahead, do a date stamp. Bruce agrees with Meltzer. Everything that he said. The match was phenomenal. It told a wonderful story. It had a climatic finish and was something that that was the standard. They set a bar that was almost impossible to top with that one match.
It's really something that if you're a younger fan, or maybe you're an older fan, you never saw it or you haven't seen it in a long time, you really should go out of your way to watch it again. I saw it again this week. And I wasn't a wrestling fan. I wasn't watching when this happened. I had taken time away from wrestling, but when I got back in, I heard enough people talking about this. I went and found the VHS, popped it in, and I still remember where I sat when I watched it because it made such an impression. Like, what the fuck is this? Just an outstanding match. And I want to hear, sort of your take. I know you weren't there for WrestleMania 3, but Dave has a little bit of a hot take here, saying that he thinks this match is actually better than Savage Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. Would you agree with that?
I would. You add the element of danger with the ladder and climbing for the championships. Not taking anything away from Savage and Steamboat, but if you made me pick one, I would pick the ladder match because I thought it was just a little more logical, I guess you could say. Both excellent matches in their own right. However, the drama in the ladder match, just by the virtue of having a ladder in the match, made it better to me.
Yeah, really, really great stuff. We can't put it over enough. Let's just talk about what Shawn wrote about it. He said that he and Scott were rushed around most of the day because of autographs and interview sessions. So they didn't have a lot of time to actually walk through things in the ring. About the only thing they had time to do was climb the ladder so the production crew would know exactly what height to hang the belts from. And we've never really talked about that here on the show, but that seems like that's a fucking pretty important detail, is it not?
Well, yes, it is. And it's a detail. It's little things like this going on in the 90s that, TNA many years later would forget, where they would just, well, we hung it there last time. Okay, but the guys that worked there last time were 2 feet taller than the guys that are working in it this time. Yeah, important detail.
And it's funny because we never really talked about it before. And I don't even know that I really knew this before. I think I may have just assumed that this is actually the first time they worked this ladder match, but they had worked it more than a half dozen times before they get here. So they had time to sort of build their WrestleMania match, which makes all the sense in the world. And we shouldn't be surprised by. However, I do wonder, that means they had to go to the trouble of having someone in production hang the belt at a house show from, whatever's above the ring every single time. That doesn't seem like a big deal at a big pay-per-view show, but it seems like a really big deal to do that on the house shows.
Yeah, not so much. Really, all it requires is a rigging guy there to run a cable and lower the belt at the right time. But on house shows, a lot of times what they would do is they would pre-hang the belt. So they would hang it and it would be up there the entire night in the early inceptions of the ladder matches. We didn't have the big presentation of bringing the championship down and hanging it early on. That belt would be hanging up there all night long until the match.
Well, you know what though, in a weird way, that probably built even more anticipation for the match. I mean, people got to look at it all night and talk about it, and speculate and really build it up.
True that.
Shawn would write, when we made it to the back, we knew we had stolen the show. We didn't know that we had set a new standard. We just knew we had a great match. Soon, everyone else started putting the match over, and that really gave us the sense that we'd done something out of the ordinary. But the icing on the cake was when Gorilla Monsoon told us, I think I may have seen the greatest match I've ever seen. Gorilla Monsoon, of all people, he'd been with the company since its inception in 1960. He wrestled for over 20 years and then went on to become a great announcer and front office person. He garnered more respect than just about anyone else in the history of the business, and he was very old school. He appreciated ring psychology and wasn't into gimmicks like ladders. It was his compliment of compliments because he didn't give out many. My mentors had always told me it didn't matter if you won or lost, only that you put on a great match. I'm sure they were proud of their student. I lost the match, but I think I just made my career. People began to look at me in a different light. So you were there that night, Bruce, when these guys come back through the curtain. What's the reaction?
Awe. Just absolute awe of the match. And there's another side to it. I'll give you my reaction because I was pissed. I was livid. They had gone so heavy on time and trying to time the show. We had another match that was supposed to take place. It was a 10-man tag team match that we had to cut from the show because this match had gone so long. But I couldn't even be pissed off at that because the match was so friggin' good. So what would you rather have had? Would you rather have had a 10-man match, got everybody on the WrestleMania card, or would you rather have had that match, that ladder match that just stole the show and blew everything else on the card away?
Did Vince's feelings on Shawn change that night?
I think somewhat they did. I think that there was a new appreciation and respect for Shawn after that, because Shawn, in my opinion, I think Shawn was the leader in the match, and Shawn was the one that really put it all together and make it sing. Takes two to tango, and he had a great dancing partner in Razor Ramon. But again, you just can't say enough great things about that match and the whole execution of it, and making what we now, kind of look at almost commonplace with is a ladder match.
A friend of ours, Mr. Ric Flair, has often joked that at WrestleMania 10, Shawn Michaels wrestled a ladder. He says that tongue in cheek, but how many other guys were sort of insinuating that Shawn was the breakout star here and Shawn was putting on a show and Razor was just sort of there?
Well, Shawn was the breakout star here, but Razor definitely pulled his weight in this match, and he was a great dancing partner. But yeah, Shawn definitely stole the show, and Shawn was the one everybody was talking about at the end of the night.
It's sort of fun to talk about how Bret, Shawn, and Owen's careers sort of run at the same time here, where you've got a night where you're really making Bret, and in the process you make Owen, but you also make Shawn Michaels. if Shawn and Razor had not been on this card and had not had this ladder match, would we still be talking about Owen and Bret, much like we do the vein of Savage Steamboat WrestleMania 3?
Absolutely. And to me, it was also the same night Owen Hart's breakout performance as well. So, yeah, I mean, Owen delivered that night and let everybody know that he was the best worker in the Hart family that night.
Owen has to be a little disappointed knowing that this is going to be really his sort of breakout night, but all anybody's really talking about is Shawn Michaels.
I don't know if that's all anybody was talking about. It was both great, but without a doubt, the ladder match stole that show.